Many months ago, I was gonna make a different video on the Odyssey, trying to defend its weird choices like the movie's overall aesthetic or how they used a Viking longship instead of a period-accurate ancient Greek one, but a lot of time has passed since then, and as we move closer to the premiere, I'm recording this the Monday of when it's gonna premiere, the more things are revealed about the movie, like the plot details and what the story is gonna be like compared to the original by Homer, I don't think these weird choices make it a misunderstood movie anymore. And instead, I think all of these are deliberate, they're meant to do something but not in the way you think, and everything is going according to plan. Christopher Nolan's plan, to be more specific. Welcome back, I'm Inigo, and in this video, I'm gonna lay out my conspiracy theory on why Christopher Nolan is doing all of these things in the Odyssey, because out of all the theories and explanations out there where we can go super alt-right QAnon to like super woke, I think my explanation is gonna make the most sense. And as a huge disclaimer, again, I'm recording this on Monday, July 13, the week of when the Odyssey is going to come out, so obviously some reviewers have already seen it, I haven't seen it, and this is why I'm recording this right now. I want to document what I think of this movie before I actually see it, to see how far off I can, and obviously, it's a hot topic, I need to grow the channel. So even though I'm mostly done with the Project Hail Mary video, this was going to have to go first. So if this interests you and you want to see a different take, trying to make sense out of all the weird choices that Christopher Nolan has been making in this movie, stick around through the end. I hope it will be worth it to you. Alright, so here's my theory on this whole thing. Christopher Nolan is bored with making good movies, and he's going through a bit of a midlife crisis, and The Odyssey is one half of a crisis project, and also a vanity project. Yeah, that's my take. It's not some kind of QAnon conspiracy or woke conspiracy humiliation ritual, although I'm going to be discussing a bit of that later on. But here's why this movie being a midlife crisis movie makes so much sense to me. Number one, he's been pumping out great movie after great movie. I'm talking like Kino levels of greatness since he was 29 when Memento first came out. And you have to admit, he hasn't really made a bad movie since then. All his hits were bangers and they range from good to great. Like, that's the level of filmmaking this man has achieved. And I think a lot of that has to do with how his movies, no matter how far off they are from reality, they're still founded on realism and being realistic. This is a man with insane attention to detail to make his movies feel realistic in spite of how far off the fantasy of the story is, or like how unattainable the sci-fi of the movie is, and everything in between. Richard Donner in the 1970s made you believe that a man could fly in his Superman movies. Christopher Nolan made you believe that Batman could be a real person in the world we live in right now. Like, he grounded all of the fantastical elements from the comic books and the Tim Burton movies, and he made them realistic. That was his MO. For once, you can actually believe that Batman uses real tech that's attainable in this world, and he actually gets body damage over time. And in spite of all that, he's still fucking Batman. Like, one of the things I think Christopher Nolan did was the gliding mechanic that eventually made its way to the Arkham games, and now that's just canon, in the same way that because of the limitations that the Tim Burton movies had with their Batman suit and how Michael Keaton wasn't able to turn his neck around, they invented the grapple gun, and that's just a Batman piece of thing now. Christopher Nolan invented realistic gliding mechanics that cannot work in real life, and yet in the movies you feel they're realistic, and that's something that someone could do in that universe. As woo-woo as Inception is, from the story perspective and like how that universe works, you can believe that that kind of dream machine exists and that kind of subconscious dream journeying can function in our world realistically. Same thing with Interstellar. Like, Interstellar's science is a bit exaggerated, but it's realistic enough for you to be able to ground that kind of mechanics and follow along in that movie. And I wouldn't call it suspending your disbelief, but it's sort of like the opposite of that, where using your real world brain, for lack of a better term, the movie just makes sense. I mean, Tenet's probably on the far end of that kind of believability, but even the action there and like the mechanics of it is grounded in realism. Because I think, and I've only watched this once and also like super drunk, but I think it's because half time travel and half sort of like anomaly that they managed to control, like time working backwards. And even in the Odyssey, like, based on what we know, they used a Viking longship to shoot scenes in the ocean to keep things authentic. Because I think being the guy who directed Dunkirk, he'd know a thing or two about filming on boats versus on sound stages, and being on a boat in the middle of the ocean is just completely different. And it's Christopher Nolan being that kind of extra that gives this certain je ne sais quoi about his movies that makes it, again, realistic. And I want to bring this point up, and I don't know when this is going to come up again. I'm just going to take this opportunity to say, don't worry about the Viking longships.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
Most of the ships in the ancient world pretty much all look the same. So, as far as authenticity goes, I know I'm nerding out on a bunch of boats and ships. That's my trains thing. That's my tism. But the only real difference that those Viking longships have compared to Mediterranean boats, especially Mediterranean transfer boats, is that their hulls are built in the clinker-built method versus the Mediterranean method, where it's sort of like flush and using pegs and nails in a different way. The clinker-built way that the Vikings used, it's just lighter for less materials, which makes sense in Scandinavia. Whereas in the Mediterranean, you have lots more lumber, so that's sort of like the difference. But I assume the reason why they didn't make an ancient Greek boat was that, unlike the Norwegians or Swedes, the Greeks now probably don't have an active shipbuilding industry, at least for authentic ancient Greek boats go. And so it's just easier to get a hold of one of these ships, and my hope is just they retrofit these hulls to make them look flush and not clinker built. That's just my one ask for this movie. But other than that, most of these boats pretty much are built the same way, maybe with slight variations. Anyways, back to Christopher Nolan. As you can see, this man's resume is immaculate. So I think, all in all, this is his version of buying a sports car, because, for a man who crashes jets into buildings, like airliner jets, a new sports car just wouldn't do, would it? Because this is a guy who gets glazed a lot. Like Nolan fans or Nolan bros, they're cult-like, and will never see any flaws in his movies regardless. Like when you watch this movie in the cinemas, there's going to be a subset of people who have decided that this movie is going to be so great, the greatest thing ever, until Christopher Nolan makes the next movie, even before the title screen shows up. Like Christopher Nolan's at this stage in his career where nobody really criticizes him, and any kind of critique is just haters being haters. Which, you shouldn't really even entertain those things, because they're not healthy for you, and they're not gonna help you become better. So all the feedback he gets either doesn't feel real and are highly sycophantic, or the most easy to dismiss, irrelevant garbage takes. That's, I think, where Christopher Nolan is at. So taking all of these into account, I don't know, it does make a lot of sense how much he's deliberately aggroing certain aspects of this movie and adding unnecessary baggage just to see if he, as a filmmaker, can make a really good movie, like a damn good movie, in spite of all the controversy surrounding it. And that intangible validation of, I made the Odyssey so awesome in spite of making shit creative choices, at least from our perspective as the masses, getting that kind of validation might be the one thing that he wants out of all of this. Because it surely can't be the money at this point. He's probably loaded by now. It's not going to be the awards. He's gotten all the awards he'd ever want. And it's not working with other actors, because actors line up to want to work with him, not the other way around. And the closest thing that I can come up with is like breaking a few strings on your guitar to see if you can still shred and ace that guitar solo, because you've peaked creatively and now you're looking for new challenges. Or maybe if you're a chef, you're over seasoning your dish just so you can see if you can try to save it, or like using something deliberately bad just to see if you still have it in you to make something good in spite of using shit ingredients. I don't know. If you're a creative person in any capacity, you know what I mean. But what if this isn't the case? What would make it not make sense that this is a midlife crisis movie, at least for Christopher Nolan? Well, he's too good, detail-oriented, and deliberate to not know what potential problems people may have with some of his more unorthodox choices. Specifically on the overall look of ancient Greece in that era, the armor that they have that we know he knows he's made a reputation on realism, and the fact that he's foregoing to make something historically accurate in spite of being Mr. Realism, like how I described earlier, and he's just ditching all of that away. That's kind of weird, isn't it? And obviously there's also some casting choices, which I'm not gonna get into. You know what they are, you know what you feel about them, I know what I feel about them. I'm just keeping an open mind because out of all the Batman that have been casted, statistically speaking, all of them got shit for it. Except Christian Bale, because Christian Bale probably got the least because people didn't really give a fuck about Batman movies when that came out. And the reason why we give a fuck about Batman movies now is because of Christopher Nolan, coincidentally. Then there's also conventional logic, where he knows what makes movies good and what sells a lot of tickets. Like, this is a guy who isn't just a director, he's working on a lot of different projects. So he knows what movies are supposed to be like and what they're supposed to achieve, which is be good as a movie and also entertain people so that they pay you and don't ask for refunds and they keep watching your movie and the movie that comes from your studio. Also, related to that last one, they're making this with someone else's money. And these kind of choices can destroy acting careers. So that's just conventional logic or common sense. But it's also important to note that Christopher Nolan doesn't actually do emails, or I don't think he has a phone. So to him, this whole culture war, left versus right, woke stuff, chud stuff, might not even be in his radar to begin with. Maybe he just thinks casting someone like Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy might just be cool. I don't fucking know. Okay, I'm not gonna claim to know. Maybe this is just reality for him. And if it isn't reality, maybe this is a humiliation ritual. Yeah, that's one of the theories that's been coming out that I think I need to address. Now, if it was a humiliation ritual, he did just sort of jump ship from Warner Brothers to Universal. I don't think that holds a lot of weight, and he's also not on the chud spectrum of filmmakers enough to warrant that kind of humiliation ritual thing. Maybe someone from IMAX is blackmailing him. Nolan just has access to IMAX and improves on it like no one else does, so he's super close to IMAX. Maybe someone over there is blackmailing. I don't know. Or maybe this, all the world's a stage, and this is the establishment sort of coup de grace to kill the idea of woke, at least in pop culture, in such a spectacular fashion for all the world to see. Looking back, this movie was deliberately made to be one of the bookends of this part of culture or pop culture, because you have to admit, everybody watches a Christopher Nolan movie, and it's harder and harder these days to get people to do one thing. Even the Super Bowl doesn't get all people watching it. Even Star Wars doesn't get all people watching it these days. And so for you to have sort of that kind of bookend thing, in the same way that I guess they did this whole book beginning thing in 2017 with the duo of Captain Marvel and The Last Jedi. Again, I'm pulling this out of my ass, so take it with a huge grain of salt. The same way that's sort of happening, and that's almost 10 years ago. Maybe they're just bookending this part of the culture thing, just so people can move on and just stop doing this thing. That kind of thing makes sense as sort of a humiliation ritual, or a sacrificial thing. But again, it also could just be the producer's kind of plot where they just wanna, I don't know, tank a movie so bad they lose money and sort of get insurance claim. I don't know. I'm happy with my life. Read between those lines. And also, this is why I think that those conspiracy theories are way off. Christopher Nolan being bored and intentionally giving himself handicaps because he's going through a midlife crisis and needs that sort of validation that he can still make a movie in spite of all this baggage and controversy. I think that just makes the most sense. What do you guys think? You guys think he's doing this on purpose, for the challenge, for the meme? Maybe he lost a bet? Or maybe he just doesn't have any clue about how the world works now. I mean, again, he is notorious for admitting to not having a phone or reading emails, so people around him can just curate a version of reality. That sort of serves their agenda best, and Christopher Nolan wouldn't know any better. Or, again, midlife crisis. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, do check out the other stuff in my channel, and if you'd like to sub, consider turning on the bell notification so you'll know every time I upload. And if you want to check out these other videos that are popping up on your screen right now, yeah, go check them out. Really appreciate it. I'm Inigo, signing off for now. Bye.